Hello, this is Zidster. This is my first video, and I am trying to do Final Fantasy XIV Dungeons for Dummies. We are going to start with Realm Reborn's Satache. So be patient with me and let's go through and see a tutorial. Alright, we are commencing here. I'm going as a tank so that you understand how a tank runs this dungeon. In most cases you can go ahead and pull, but considering I'm doing this in the duty support system, you really don't want to, because the healer does not do such a hot job, nor does the DPS take out enemies in multi-hits. They hit one enemy at a time. So you might want to make sure that you have your mitigations and your cooldowns available at all times. Now as we head back to the back here, we're going to take on a few enemies and we're going to take them out. As soon as they are done, you're going to want to head continuing back in that direction that you started, because there's some information there that you will need for further in the dungeon. As we go into the back here, you'll see a bloody memo. On it, it will say, you find a blood-stained scrap of parchment with a message scrawled upon it in faded ink. The captain likes his seas blue. Blue is referring to a color. Now, you will need this information later as you go through the dungeon. Keep in mind that memo changes, so if you go through the dungeon multiple times, it's going to have a different color that it mentions. At this point, we are going to just keep on trudging through and taking out as many enemies as we can. If you're using these dungeons as leveling, I highly recommend continuing to fight all the mobs. Every mob you can, because they have experience attached to them when you take out each and every section of the bosses. Now as we go through here, make sure to keep yourselves safe from AoEs. Make sure to check the ground, make sure there's no AoEs underneath you. Some of these enemies will paralyze you, as you just saw. In most cases, if you're doing the duty support system, sometimes the healer will remember to use Esuna, sometimes they won't, so just keep your eye on them and make sure that you do the best you can to avoid getting hit. Now, over here in the corner you see these great clams. You're going to want to take that out. Now they close and they become invulnerable, but when they open, take them out as fast as you can, because they are the ones that spawn the Shade Seekers. Now, I decided to go ahead and start making this channel and making this series based on the fact that since I play this every day, practically, I am a casual player. I don't play a ton of the expert stuff. However, when I played with my family and friends, I would do some of the dungeons and trials and raids before they did and learn how the dungeons and raids would work. And when they went through it for their first time, they liked how I gave explanations. So it came to me that it would be good for people who are casual players or players who are just starting out to have a little guide as to how to go through some of these dungeons. I do plan on, if at all possible, trying to make it through every dungeon in the game to this point, which I do believe is the dungeon after Troyus, Fell City of Troya, excuse me. So I'm hoping to put out as many videos on these as I can so that people who are going through it, newbies and people who have been doing this game since the beginning, may have some enjoyment. I'm hoping that this will actually be somewhat of new information or just a reminder. I have been playing this game since before it came out. I played the open beta, and it has been one of the best MMOs I have ever played. Mind you, I only played Final Fantasy XI, which was not my one of my better times of playing video games. I hope that these videos are of help to everybody. Now, as we get into this next area, this is where that bloody memo comes into play. If you look at the screen, you're going to notice there are 3 different colored corals. Now you're going to go over to the switch on the wall. You're going to hit that switch, which will make it to where you can do this. Now, in this case, the bloody memo said blue. So we went to the blue coral, we interacted with it. Now we're going to hit the inconspicuous switch, which will spawn the boss. Now, if you hit a different color than what is on the bloody memo, it will spawn ads. The ads you can take out and then go for the right coral. Most people just totally ignore the bloody memo and will come in here and randomly pick a coral. Sometimes it just spawns the boss, sometimes they get the ads. The way to make sure that you get just the boss is to read the bloody memo and know which color to pick. Now we just tank and what is known as tank and spank this boss, making sure to stay out of the AoE because it will paralyze you and do significant damage. Then we come back to the inconspicuous switch and interact with that. You can get the chest if you want. And we will move on to the next section of the dungeon. Now this section is rather long and rather annoying. You can take him out. If you go in with a group, this dungeon takes a lot less time. It takes maybe 10-15 minutes max. Because you can go and pull every one of these mobs into a big pile, and usually the DPS can knock them out while the healer keeps you alive. Otherwise, you're stuck doing what I'm doing right now, which is just hammering at them one at a time.
summon them. Otherwise, he will summon you and fight again.
I don't know about any cages.
It's in an herb. It's in a room. I'll point it out when we get. It's in.
Just a little bit of a fact, and this is something that I didn't do in this run. If you look around this room, there are cages with monsters in them. You can go and unlock the cages and let the monsters out, and you can kill them. There are chests inside the cages. If you do that, one of the bosses later on will, if you don't do it, one of the bosses later on will summon them into the fight. If you take them out now, you don't have to worry about the boss summoning them into the fight. Most people don't, but if that's something you want to do at this point, now's your chance to do it. Now at this point, you have a scurvy dog, and I'm not sure what that other pirate is, but anyway, when you defeat them, one of them will drop what's known as the key, or the captain's key, or tiny key, I'm not sure which it is. Make sure to pick that up, because you won't be able to move on to the next section of the dungeon until you pick it up. There it is, the captain's quarters key. You interact with it, picking it up, and you're going to move over to where you see these two guys over here, the captain's quarters. Take them out, and you interact with the door, unlocking it. Now, one of the other players in your group, if you're playing this with other players, not the duty support, you can have them go over to the door and unlock the door while you grab the aggro of the two guards on the outside. It opens the door, you can drag the guards in and take out the captain all at one time. Otherwise, you're doing what I'm doing, which is, of course, taking out the guards, then unlocking the door, because the duty support does not do that lovely little trick for you. And you take him out, he drops another key that you will need to continue on with the dungeon. And there it is. And we pick that up, and we guide the duty support over to the other side, where you're going to find two more guards. And you're going to take them out. And again, if you're with a group, the group can open that door and you can move on and drag those two guys into the next section, where you'll fight another boss. Again, that's the boss that would summon the monsters that are in the cages that are still in this room. And you can take them out all at once instead of, again, doing what I'm doing, which is the slow way.
I just said Uno. You didn't keep. That was justified.
Now this is the boss that you're going to have when that's going to summon all those monsters that were in those cages. Now because we didn't go and release them and kill them after we take out these guards and bring down the boss down to a certain percentage, he will then summon in all these scurvy dogs that you have to take out, and he will run away. You will have to kill the scurvy dogs and follow after him to the next section of the dungeon. Keep in mind, this is an early dungeon, so the fear of making too many mistakes if you're a newbie, nobody really makes any big points about, because this is, like I said, the very first dungeon of Realm Reborn, also known as Satache. It's, the quest for this one is called probably Pirates. So if you've come to that quest, you know that you're coming up on this dungeon. Now we're coming up on the last set of pulls for this dungeon. Now, in most cases, most tanks will grab each and every guy in this room and hold him to the center all at once. But again, we're doing this with a duty support, so you don't want to do that unless you want to wipe. So we're going to do this in small increments and hopefully be able to get through this rather quickly. Sorry if you hear some barking in the background. My dogs found something that they think is rather interesting to bark at. And if you hear clicking, it's my dog who's walking on my linoleum floor. She sounds like a quick popping horse, so sorry for the interruption. Now, we're going to finish these up, and then we will head into the boss room. This will be the final boss of Satache. This dungeon I've gotten to know quite well, given the fact that it is practically the only dungeon on the duty roulette for leveling that seems to pop up. Don't know why, but apparently everybody needs to do Satache repeatedly, practically every day. So usually if you're doing your duty roulettes and you're doing it for leveling, chances are you're going to end up in this dungeon. So if you haven't been in it before, I'm hoping this information will help you. If not, if you're just doing your duty roulettes like I do practically every day, this is just going to sound like a repeat of the same old rehash that you've been doing for years. Now we're going to move on. Now, if you look in this room, you're going to see all these little grates that say unnatural ripples. Now, there are mechanics to this boss, and back in the old days when this game first came out, yes, you seriously wanted to deal with those unnatural ripples. What will happen at a certain point, the boss will start to summon in other Sahagin. They will come up through those grates. Now you see over in the corner, they're starting to have spouts come out of those grates. Most people will go over and interact with the grates to keep the Sahagin from coming up through those grates. And that'll give you more ads. But at this point, most of the time, it doesn't matter. They will summon in maybe 2, maybe 3, but by the time they start to cause any damage, you've already taken out the boss. So in which case, just tank and spank it, burn the boss down, and that's it. That's the end of the dungeon. So, there we have it. Now, you can get the treasure coffer at the end, or you can exit. It's up to you. But at this point, this is the end of my first attempt at a video. I hope that is informative. And that's the dungeon. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that my first video is not a total disaster. If you have any information or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you'd be so kind as to subscribe, and hopefully we will see you all again. Thank you.